Hello, this is Francisco Perez. Welcome to another educational lesson. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom to all my family out there. Berakah to the Most High, high. And welcome everybody to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Get some of this poison water. It's the best one I could find so far, Evian water. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to be getting into that book again. Okay? I'm going to just... Alright, so the letter from Columbus. Let's get into it. Okay, so not too sure where we laid off, so I'm gonna stay right here. Remember this. Okay, so we're gonna start on page 24. Sorry, all beat up, attacking us again. In all the islands, I observed little difference in the appearance of the people, or in their habits and language, except that they understand each other, which is remarkable. Therefore, I hope that their highness will decide upon the conversion of these people to our holy faith, to which they seem much inclined. I have already stated how I sailed 170 leagues along the sea coast of Wana in a straight line from west to east. I can therefore assert that this island is larger than England and Scotland together, since beyond these 170 leagues there remain at the west point 2 provinces where I did not go to. Alright. There remained at the west point 2 provinces where I did not go, one of which they call Avalon, the home of men with tails. Whoa, men with tails. What have we been learning about men with tails? Isn't that fallen angel descendants? These provinces are computed to be 50 or 60 leagues in length, as far as can be gathered from the Indians with me, who are acquainted with all these islands. This other Hispaniola is larger in circumference than all Spain, from Catalonia to Fuenterrabia. How's that? Fuenterrabia. What? In Biscay, since upon one of its four sides I sailed 180 leagues from west to east. This is worth having, and must on no account be given up. I have taken possession of all these islands for their highness, and may be more extensive than I know or can say, and I hold them for their highness, who can command them as absolutely as the kingdom of Castile and Hispaniola, in the most convenient place, most accessible for the gold mines and all commerce with the mainland on this side, or what that of the Great Khan. What? See what? Most accessible for gold mines and all commerce with the mainland on this side, or with that of the Great Khan. What? Who is this Great Khan that they talk about? Wow. Wow, the Great Khan. So they're looking for this king called the Great Khan. Oh man, okay. Before I read any further, let's exercise our right to look up the Grand Khan, because who is, they would say, oh, nah, he wasn't looking for, that's Genghis Khan, man, in Asia. He thought he was in the Asia. What if I was to tell you that America was known as the third India, the far India, where the water at the ends of the world, by the unpassable waters. What if I was to tell you that South America was called South West Africa at one point? What if I was to tell you that an Ethiopian Davidic king ruled in America? What if I was to show you a gold artifact for an Egyptian king named Khan, found in the Grand Canyon in the Kincaid's Cave? Alright, let's check it out. So this is Ancient Egyptians in America, and this is located in the Grand Canyon. John Wesley Powell discovered these areas, and then Kincaid then did further exploration and found these caves with these artifacts. This right here is a gold statue dedicated to the Egyptian king Khan. See? Hieroglyphic symbols for the ancient kings. Hieroglyphic symbols means Khan, Kayan, was a powerful king in Egypt. Was recorded as the descendant of Zaphnath or Joseph, the Hebrew that was the king of Egypt from 1610 to 1580 at Avaris, Egypt, where King Zaphnath ruled Egypt from also. So he's talking about Joseph from the 12 tribes of Israel, Yisri, Yalhel, all these different names. We know Israel is a new name. We know in Egypt the hieroglyphs, these things say Yisri. There's all types of names, but we know you come from Eber. Alright? That's who they was talking about. And Avariz, where the Hyksos Asiatics, who they like to whitewash, ruled. And then after their rulership, our people was marginalized, and then we exodus from Egypt. Okay? This is just all correlating with that history. This is all located in the cave. All of this. It's now in the Smithsonian of Washington, D.C. And you know, with a lot of these things, they would show it and say it's from Africa. They'd mislabel it from Africa when they knew they got it from. Look at the pyramids. When they knew they got it from here. And there's hieroglyphs all up on these temple mounds, these temples. And these people who are living in the area now, they speak a dialect of Egyptian. This is Grand Canyon. See the mummies, Zoroaster Temple. Zoroaster is supposed to be the Hebrew Joseph. This is a pyramid in the Grand Canyon. This guy was the Prime Minister of Egypt. He ordered the Smithsonian to return all these artifacts to Egypt and to stop from publishing these finds. Alright, so let's go a little further into it. So this is the life of Christopher Columbus. So this is by Edward Everett Hare. Hey, this landing on Cuba, the cigar and tobacco, Simpango, and the Great Khan from Cuba to Haiti. And if you didn't know, Haiti was called Turtle Island when we were living there. Turtle Island. Yeah, Turtle Island. When Columbus landed at some distance farther along the coast, he found the best houses he had yet seen, very large, like pavilions, and very neat within, not in streets, but set about here and there. They were all built of palm branches. Here were dogs which never barked, with wild birds tamed in the houses, and wonderful arrangements of nets and fish hooks and fishing apparatus. There were also carved masts and other images. Not a thing was touched. The inhabitants had fled. These were probably hammocks. He went on to the northwest and saw Cape, which he named Cabo de Palmas. The Indians on board the Pinta said that beyond this cape was a river, and that at 4 days' journey from this was what they called Cuba. Now they have been coasting along the island of Cuba for 2 or 3 days. But Martin Pinzon, the captain of the Pinta, understood this Cuba to be a city, and that this land was the mainland, running far to the north. Columbus, until he died, believed that it was the mainland. Martin Pinzon also understood that the king of that land was at war with the Grand Khan, whom they call Kami. The admiral determined to go to the river the Indians mentioned and send the king the letter of the sovereigns. He meant to send with it a sailor who had been to Guinea and some of the Gaunahani Indians. He was encouraged, probably by the name of Carney. I'm thinking that he was really near the Grand Khan. So the Grand Khan is speaking of in America. It's not a joke. He did not, however, send off the messengers at once, as the wind and the nature of the coast proved unfit for his goings. Up the river the Indians had spoken of, he went back to the town which he had been 2 days before. Once more he found that the people had fled, but after a good while a man appeared, and the admiral sent ashore one of the Indians he had with him. This man shouted to the Indians on shore that they must not be afraid, as they were good people and did harm to no man. Ha ha! Nor did they belong to the Grand Khan. Nor did they belong to the Grand Khan, but they gave of what they had in many islands where they had been. He now jumped into the sea and swam ashore. The two of the inhabitants took him in their arms and brought him to a house where they asked him questions. When he had reassured them, they began to come out of the ships in their canoes, with spun cotton of other of their little things. But the admiral commanded that nothing should be taken from them, so that they might know that he was seeking nothing but gold, or as they called it, nuke. He saw no gold here, but one of them had a piece of wrought silver hanging to his nose. They made signs that before 3 days many merchants would come from the inland country to trade with the Spaniards, and that they would bring news from the king, who according to their signs was 4 days' journey away. So Grand Khan was 4 days away in the canoe. And it is certain, says the admiral, that this is the mainland, and I am before Zeto and Quince, and 100 leagues more or less from both of them. And this is clearly shown by the tide, which comes in from different manner from in which it had done up to this time. And yesterday I went to the northwest. I found that it was cold. Always supposing that he was near Japan, which they called Cipango, Columbus continued to sail along the northern coast of Cuba and explored about half that store. You know, if he was on the coast, he knows what the coast of the East Coast is. He's not silly. This is new territory. He's discovering. He knows he's not there. He then returned to the east, governed by assurances of the natives that on the island named Babek, he would find men who used hammers in which to beat gold into ingots. This gold, as he understood them, was collected on the shore at night, while the people lighted up the darkness with candles. And my people, we use kukuina, inamona, and we use that for candles. It was good, great oil. At the point where he turned back, he had hauled his ships up on the shore to repair them. From this point, on the 2nd of November, he sent 2 officers inland, one of whom was a Jew who knew Chaldee, Hebrew, and a little Arabic. Why would he had to have known Hebrew? Huh? Why would he have to have known Babylonian, Chaldean? Why would he have to know Arabic language? Did we speak that? Do we speak dialects of those languages? That's what they say. That's what the evidence proves, in the hope that they should find someone who could speak these languages. With them went one of the Gaunahani Indians and one from the neighborhood. Sorry, my nose clogged. They returned one on the night between the 5th and the 6th of November. 12 leagues off, they had found a village of about 50 large houses made in the form of tents. This village had about 1,000 inhabitants, according to the explorers. They had received the ambassadors with cordial kindness, believing that they had descended from heaven. They even took them in their arms and thus carried them in the finest house of all. They gave them seats and then sat round them on the ground in a circle. They kissed their feet and hands and touched them to make sure whether they really were men of flesh and bone. It was on this expedition that the first observation was made of that gift of America to the world, which has worked its way so deep and far into general use. They met men of whom carried live coals so as to draw into their mouths the smoke of burning herbs. So they smoked marijuana and they smoked tobacco. This was an account of the first observers, but Las Casas says that the dry herbs was wrapped in another leaf as dry. So they had marijuana wrapped in tobacco leaves. He says so there was a split. They lighted one end on a little stick, thus formed, and sucked in and absorbed the smoke by the other, with which, he says, they put their flesh to sleep, and it nearly intoxicates them, and thus they say that they feel no fatigue. These mesquites, as we call them, they call tobaccos. I knew Spaniards on this island of Hispaniola who were accustomed to take them, who, on being reproved for it as a vice, replied that it was not in their power to leave off taking them. I do not know what savor or profit they found in them. This is clearly a cigar. The 3rd or 4th of November, then 1892, with the addition of 9 days to change the style from old to new, may be taken by lovers of tobacco as the 4th centennial of the day when Europeans first learned the use of the cigar. Oh boy. Okay. They might learn our tongue so as to know that there is in the country, and so that when they come back, they may be tongues to the Christians and receive our customs and the faiths and the things of the faith. Because I saw and know, says the admiral, that this people has no religion. So they weren't religious; they were spiritual. Nor they are idolaters yet. What did they tell us? Oh, idolatry. At the same time, they speak of us as not having idols, but very mild and without knowing what evil is. So we weren't evil. We didn't even know how to be evil, know how to kill others. We never yearned to kill others. It was against our laws. Know how to take them. We didn't just take people, and without arms, and so timorous that from one of our men 10 of them fly. You know that's bullshit, because when we read the accounts, we kicked their asses. The only reason they got a stronghold on us was because of bioweapons. Other than do sport with them and ready to believe and knowing that there is a God in heaven. So he's saying that they do believe in the Creator. They were spiritual. They didn't have idols. So they already doing the first couple commandments. Have no other God than me. I am your Creator. Do not put your faith in images and idols. Anything created above, on, or underneath. They're already doing that. And sure that we have come from heaven, didn't we understand that fallen angels and stuff, and their seeds were light skinned? And that's why they believed that they came from heaven? And very ready at any prayer which we tell them to repeat, and they make the sign of the cross. So as soon as they came, they said, oh, say this prayer to Jesus. Make this sign, this image, this idol. Let's see what else got here. Without doubt, there are in these great lands the greatest quantities of gold, for not without cause Do these Indians who I'm bringing say there are places in these isles where they dig out gold and wear it on their necks, in their ears, and on their arms and legs, and bracelets are very thick. And also there are stones and precious pearls and unnumbered spices, as in this Rio de Maris, from which I departed last night. Without doubt there is the greatest quantity of mastic, and there might be more if more were desired. For the trees if planted take root, and there are many of them, and are very great, and they have the leaves like a lentis, and their fruit, except that the trees and the fruit are larger, is such as Pliny describes. And I have seen in the island of Chios in the archipelago. And I had many of these trees tapped to see if they would send out resin, so as to draw it out. And as it rained all the time I was at the said river, I could not get any of it, except a very little, which I am bringing to your highness. And besides, it may not be that it is not the time to tap them, for I believe that this should be done at the time when the trees begin to leave out from the winter and seek to send out their flowers, and now they have the fruit nearly ripe. And also here there might be had a great store of cotton, and I believe that it might be sold very well here without taking it to Spain, in the great cities of the great Khan, which will doubtless be discovered, and many others, or of other lords, so other Khans or other kings, who will then have to serve your highness. So you're gonna bring all the kings of America to their knees. And where's the kings today? Huh? Well, yeah, we live in the hoods. We told we ain't shit. Called bywords like Mexican and African American. Who will then have to serve your highness. And here will be given them other things from Spain, from the lands of the east, since these are ours in the west. Look. And here there is also alloys everywhere. Although this is not a thing to make great account of, but the mastic should be well considered, because if it is not found except in the said island of Chios, and I believe that they get from it quite 50,000 ducatas, if I remember aright. And this is the best harbor which I have seen thus far, deep and easy of access, so that this would be a good place for a large town. The notes of Columbus's journey are the more interesting and valued, because they show his impressions at the moment when he wrote. However, mistaking those impressions, he never corrects them afterwards. Although while he was in Cuba, he never found the Grand Khan. He never recalls the hopes which he has expressed. He may have not found the Grand Khan in Cuba, but he found the kings of America, and he marginalized the kings. Sent them away. Many of them were sent to Spain and other lands. So is there anything else in here? One second, honey. Okay. Columbus touched at various points on Cuba and the neighboring islands. He sought without success for pearls, and always pressed his inquiries for gold. He was determined to find the island of Bohia, greatly to the terror of the poor Indians whom he had on board. They said that its natives had but one eye in the middle of their foreheads, and that they were well armed and ate their prisoners. So, if we look at today, it's a thing that we call with we label under birth defects, and it is called cyclopia. And these people have one eye in the middle of their head, and this, I believe, is a genetic trait from their forefather, who was probably a fallen angel, or what we call aliens. See, rhinocephali. That's the name. That's the medicinal name, or the medical name. Rhinocephaly or rhinocephaly. Characteristic of a form of cyclopia. Okay? Look at it. There's a lot of pictures, because all you gotta do is put in any mythos characters you believe to be fake or be just part of tales, mythic tales, and you'll find them in today's modern day. Babies that suffer from cyclopia or rhinocephaly or rhinocephaly. So, let's see. So that was that. Let's continue. Okay, so so when we come over here, this is about 1492. The natives came to see the discoveries. They were reddish in color and interested Columbus, for they were not inhabitants of the Far East, so he called them Indians. So we're going to 6. Oh my gosh. The Indians and the Indies. These Indians were not at all alike. Were not at all like those wonderful people of Cathay and Simpanga, whom Marco Polo had described. Instead of wearing cloth of silver and of gold, embroidered satin, these people wore no clothes of any kind. But it was plain enough that the island they had found was not Simpanga. It was probably some island off the coast of Simpanga. So when Columbus sailed and discovered Cuba, he was certain that Cuba was part of the mainland of Asia, for the Indians kept saying Kubanaquan. Columbus thought that was their way of pronouncing Kubla Khan, the name of the mighty eastern ruler. So he sent 2 messengers with a letter to the powerful monarch returning to Spain. Columbus was welcomed as a great admiral. He made 3 other voyages to America, but he never came within sight of the mainland of the United States. So they keep talking about, let's read this first. While Columbus explored the West Indies, another Italian sailed across the sea of the darkness farther north. His name was John Cabot, and he sailed with a license from Henry VII of England, the first of the Tudor kings. And what do we have today? We have the movies, the Tudor movies, the Tudor series. They're always writing about these people. Sailing boldly from Bristol, England, he crossed the North Atlantic and reached the coast of America, north of Nova Scotia. So the Tudor kings came to America. Like Columbus, he thought that he had found the country of the Grand Khan. Upon his discovery, English kings based their claim to the right of colonized North America. So they're always trying to get to America to get the Khan, to get the land of gold, land of milk and honey. Alright? Here, let me show you something. Alright, fair use.
Virtually none of Thanksgiving has an ounce of accuracy, notes the bestseller Lies My Teacher Told Me. The idea of bringing civilization to the Americas simply flips truth on its head. This is what European explorers actually found in North America.
Far and away the most beautiful city on Earth. 5 times the size of London or Rome. Great towers and buildings.
Now think of Marco Polo's description of the people.
Rising from the water. 60,000 gleaming houses, and how spacious and how well built they were. Of beautiful stonework and cedar wood, and the wood of other sweet scented trees.
Now forget the drawings, because we gotta understand whitewashing, Renaissance period is we went through, and ever since then we've changed the images of Indians to make them look Mongoloid. When in reality, I'm an Indian. And that's true, I can prove it.
The many streets and boulevards of the city were so neat and well swept, despite the multitude of inhabitants, crisscrossed with a complex network of canals, like an enormous Venice, but also remarkable floating gardens that reminded of nowhere else on Earth.
While Europe was drinking water from its polluted city rivers, huge aqueducts transported America's water from fresh springs.
But what impressed most were the special merchant areas where timber and tiles and other building materials were bought and sold, as well as greengrocer streets where one could buy every sort of vegetable, fruits, honeys, nut paste and chocolates. Astonished by the personal cleanliness and hygiene of the colorfully dressed populace, and by their extravagant use of soaps, deodorants and breath sweeteners.
Most Europeans never bathed and kept clothes on at all times. The Pilgrim's Notes biography.
So don't let them fool you when they try to say that this wasn't here. Because they tell you it was here. And they tell you they was looking for them. And then they say, oh, well, we never found them. All these savages on it. So that's done. The show must go on. It's probably gonna die soon, so see how much you can get out. So who discovered America? We have debated this pointless question for 500 years. There was nothing actually to discover. And with good reason, Christopher Colombo never used the verb to discover, nor the word discovery. Correctly, he didn't speak about the New World, but otro mundo, the other world, says the other half of the plane. The Americas existed already, and already had they been populated. Only the unbound European arrogance and the interest involved in such an extraordinary event could mark as discovery what actually no discovery was. On the other hand, even if we want to proceed in the same reasoning, we could never state with certainty who the first one had been. We only know the last one, Cristoforo Colombo. With him and his contribution to the history of navigation, the whole world changed, and the modern age began. If the Americas are nowadays, for better or worse, what we know, this is solely thanks to Cristoforo Colombo. However, what do we know? Before October 12, 1492, about the many attempts and trips that have been made to the part of the world. It's an obscure matter, but some points have been accepted so far. There were travelers from China, Polynesia, Japan. Oh, it's funny how all of these people look the same. Phoenicia,